Li JingJing is that favourite, and I'm glad to say she joins me again now. Li JingJing, welcome back to the mother of all talk shows. It just seems like yesterday you were showing us around these temples, and we had such a wonderful Moats show from Beijing. Now memories that will be treasured forever, but the stories that we talked about go on and on, particularly the Taiwan one. The issue of Taiwan has now been elevated in Western discourse, official discourse, and their state-controlled media into an existential one for us. Borrell, the EU foreign minister, last week demanded that European countries send their navies all the way to the Straits of Taiwan to patrol it because, more or less, he said, that has become our border. The European Union's border has become Taiwan. How do Chinese people see all this build-up?
Hi, George. Yes, so good to be back on your show. So before I answer a question, allow me to send holiday greetings to you and everybody who is watching this program, because Beijing time is few hours ahead of UK time. So I'm officially on May the 1st, which is International Labour's Day. So I would like to wish you and the Workers' Party of Great Britain and all the working class who is watching Moats and everybody who is watching Moats right now a very happy International Labour's Day, very important day as well. So we have a holiday, national holiday nowadays. Everybody's traveling. So I just want to say that to everybody before I answer the questions. And about Taiwan, and you can see the Western alliance is is impatient. Like every time you hear China and the U.S. will be at war over Taiwan, and they always have a specific time. They're gonna be at war in 2025. They're gonna be at a war in 2027. And I'm just curious, where did they get the specific time? Because China never mentioned a time. Every time it's coming from the Western politicians, US politicians, European politicians, even though they are thousands of miles away from the Pacific, from this border. So, I mean, just a few months ago, I discussed with my friend from Taiwan and some friends from Chinese mainland as well. And every time they predict a war either in 2025 or 2027, they are not just feeling it, they are actually planning it. So it's very hilarious because the Western media, through which some politicians twisted the facts, because if you only read Western media, you will feel it's the Chinese mainland that bullied Taiwan. Hence, the Europe and the United States feels so righteous to send warships to defend Taiwan, which they call democracy, which is hilarious because it's I think a few months ago, I remember this reports on CNN. A CNN reporter sit on a U.S. fighter jet flying over South China Sea, and of course, South China Sea, which is 8,300 miles away from U.S. borders. And the reporter sits on the U.S. fighter jet over South China Sea and saying, "See, the Chinese fighter is intercepting our plane. How aggressive Chinese fighters are!" They don't even realize how hilarious that sounds. Why are you over here? And probably many people, if they don't know the geography between Chinese mainland and Taiwan. Chinese and Taiwan, mainland and Taiwan is so close to each other. The shortest distance between the two parts is actually 133 kilometers. So you're literally in our borders, in our sky. You cannot send warships over our border and not expecting some reactions from China. And we also have to, don't forget, over the past few years, through Western-sponsored think tanks, organizations like NED, millions of US dollars dumped into Taiwan and brainwash local people trying to rewrite the history, tell the local people, you're not Chinese, even though they're speaking Chinese language, practice all the Chinese customs, they're trying to rewrite the history. So even though sometimes the local people in Taiwan think we're different from the Chinese mainland, we favor the United States, is that really what they think? Is that they're really their own thoughts, or the millions of US dollars dumped into this island and brainwash the local people what to believe?
Well, money is one thing, of course, but weapons and military personnel are now being dumped into what is a part of China, at least according to the British government, the US government, all Western governments, the United Nations, etc. All of them accept that Taiwan is part of China, at least on paper. But their actions speak louder than those words. And now we have 200, at least 200, American military trainers. That's how it all began in Vietnam, of course, with the dispatching of American military trainers, which became an army so vast that 58,000 American servicemen were killed in Vietnam in the course of not 20 years. So they've put these trainers now in Taiwan. They're supplying ever more sophisticated weaponry, including cruise missiles. They're openly calling on each other to send their warships to the region. As you say, these are not so much predictions of war in 25 or in 27, but determinations that they are going to have a war with China. Does that make the Chinese people nervous? And is there a countervailing force that says, well, if they're going to make war on us in 2025, maybe we better take whatever action is necessary now in 2023?
So I can assure you, Chinese people, they definitely want reunification with Taiwan. The peaceful reunification between Chinese mainland and Taiwan is always the ultimate solution, ultimate goal for Chinese people. And it's hilarious because Western media, some politicians keep trying to describe Chinese government as the irrational one, as the one that force unification through violence. Actually, no, the government is very restrained, is very always, if you read the Chinese government official stance, is always put peaceful reunification as the ultimate goal. If you ask random Chinese people on Chinese mainland, they want reunification tomorrow. That's like, why are some of them, if you go around on the street talking to local people, they're like, we cannot wait anymore. So why are you letting these people doing this to Taiwan, which is our territory? We've been through enough the humiliation. And many people in the West probably don't realize that the island Taiwan is probably the last symbol of the century of humiliation for Chinese people. It was taken by the Japan during the colonial times, and that forced the decades-long separation from the mainland. And also very interesting, like some Western politicians, when they try to rewrite histories, during the Japanese colonial rule, when they tried to cede the territory from China, in their Japanese documents, it recognized Taiwan is part of China. So it was during the Sino-Japanese War, during the 1894 to 1894, because of Qing dynasty, which was China back then, lost to Japan. So they signed this treaty, the treaty called Shimonoseki, that gave some territory of China to Japan, include some islands in Liaoning province and also the Taiwan island. Just a little history backgrounds to those who don't know. That was the first period that Taiwan was forced to separate from Chinese mainland. And of course, then because of the civil war between CPC and KMT Kuomintang, Chiang Kai-shek, the then leader of the Republic of China, fled to Taiwan. But even when he fled to Taiwan, he never wanted independence. He was fighting with CPC, who is the rightful government, represents China at the global stage. Chiang Kai-shek won Taiwan, where he fled to represent whole China at the international stage, which is ridiculous because the majority of China's population is on the mainland. But even for him, even during the Civil War, he never wanted independence. And then there were some people, the opportunists in Taiwan, and using the opportunities of the internal conflicts between different groups, and then the outsiders like Western forces try to use these internal conflicts, trying to sponsor them and try to change the history. So it is very important for China, because of this complicated history, this forced separation between Chinese mainland and Taiwan. The reunification with Taiwan is very important for Chinese people. No Chinese people will allow its territory being taken by colonial powers, by empires again. So this is like, we definitely will see a peaceful reunification. And the aggression by United States or Europe will only make it faster.
Taiwan, as I said earlier, has now moved officially into recession, whilst the Chinese economy is booming. I saw with my own eyes. As you know, it was 25 years since I had last been in Beijing. 25 years on, it was literally jaw-dropping, the pace and the scale of Chinese development. That must be something that Taiwan people have in their mind, that the West is able to send warships, but their economy is now being damaged by anti-China policies on the chip industry, for example. Anti-China policies are costing both South Korea and Taiwan opportunities for economic growth. They are damaging the material interests of the people of Taiwan. That must be a factor in Taiwan people's minds, I would have thought. And they have an election coming up, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. So we will see what's going to happen during that election. And I think the nominees right now, the DPP proposing is also a separatist. And I think, let's see, because I think many people, because of as my friend who is from Taiwan, Zhong Xiangyu mentioned, like, because many media in Taiwan is just kind of like Chinese translation of Western media. So they don't really portray Chinese mainland or many things on the global stage as fair as we saw. So many who, even if they didn't have the chance to grow up or study or live in the United States or in Europe, all those countries, they still live in this bubble that United States represents the best democracy in the world. So and also their mindset, their impressions about the Chinese mainland is so backwards. Sometimes we in the mainland laugh about some programs in Taiwan, just so ridiculous. Because some of the politicians in Taiwan just say, Chinese people in the mainland is so poor, they cannot even afford eating this boiled egg. 茶叶蛋 is very Chinese typical dessert. It like boiled the chicken with tea, but very tasty. But it's very cheap snack that we eat at breakfast. So even a few years ago, they're like, like Chinese mainland people, they cannot eat that, they cannot eat that. And just a few weeks ago, probably 2 weeks ago, a program said, the high-speed rail, the train don't have back support on the train. So I mean, all these ridiculous claims, claims. Like, what? Have you tried the high-speed rail in Chinese mainland? It's so fast. So some of them are trapped in their bubble with their same narratives, talking to themselves, echo chamber. So they're still in the illusion that United States as the become democracy, freest country in the world, and Chinese mainland is still so backward, probably like 40 years ago. So that I think that also make some people still have this red scare towards the CPC and towards the mainland. So how to fix that, I really don't know, because it's a very complex issues. I just want to mention one thing, since you mentioned, I remember you mentioned the Europe and the United States sending all the warships, all the military forces, arms sales to Taiwan. In March, during a press conference with our foreign minister, Qin, and he said something I think really makes sense, because the US-led West always say you should respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, but they constantly violate the sovereignty and territorial integrity of China, because if your country has a diplomatic relations with China, that means your government recognizes there's only one China, and Beijing represents the only China government. And they said Taiwan is part of China. Go to your government's website. It says that United Nations also recognize that. So they violate China's sovereignty. And also, United States keeps warning China to not send weapons to Russia. Well, in fact, they constantly sell all kinds of arms to Taiwan, shitty arms to Taiwan. So they're so double standards, hypocritical, asking other people to do that, while in reality they are doing the other. So their international rule-based order is just some rule to restrict others. And they don't follow those rules at all.
You bet. Thank you very much, Li JingJing, for reappearing in front of our eyes on the mother of all talk shows. Let's not make it long before you are back. Very much obliged to you.